Arizona Territory, 1889. The eagle had been circling the same section of Eagle Shadow Canyon for nearly an hour. Nayeli Red Feather noticed it while examining the spring below the eastern ridge. The bird did not hunt. It descended toward the western cliffs, vanished beneath an overhang, then climbed into the morning sky again. Each time it returned, its circles became tighter. On the fourth pass, something red fell from its talons. The cloth landed beside the stream. Nayeli picked it up. It was part of a dark red neckerchief, torn at one edge and stained with dried blood. 3 days earlier, she had seen Caleb Morgan wearing it outside the Copper Ridge trading post. He had been asking questions about Silver Ridge mining. Now a golden eagle was carrying part of it across the canyon. Nayeli looked toward the high cliffs. Caleb had promised to meet her at Eagle Spring before sunrise. He claimed he had discovered why the water had become cloudy after every mining blast. He was 4 hours late. Nayeli mounted her chestnut mare and followed the bird west. The route climbed above the spring through loose red stone and narrow stands of juniper. Fresh horseshoe marks appeared near the abandoned freight trail. 2 riders had gone up the mountain. Only one horse had returned. Its prints showed a frightened descent. Farther ahead, Nayeli found a broken rifle stock, then a line of blood across a pale boulder. The eagle called from the cliff. Nayeli dismounted. "Show me." The bird spread its wings and dropped below the edge. Nayeli approached on foot. Eagle Shadow Canyon opened beneath her, almost 200 feet deep. The northern wall descended in broken shelves, but the western side fell almost vertically toward a dry wash. A damaged rope bridge hung above the gorge. Several support boards were missing, and one anchor post leaned toward the drop. 10 feet below the rim, a narrow ledge crossed the rock. A man lay against it. "Caleb." His head moved. "Nayeli? You were expected at the spring. I was delayed. You are lying beneath a cliff. I noticed." His voice was weak, but the dry humor meant he remained conscious. Nayeli lay flat and examined the descent. Caleb's left shoulder was pressed against the wall. His right leg extended at an unnatural angle. A bullet had torn through his coat below the ribs, though the bleeding appeared slower than before. A leather satchel remained strapped across his chest. "Can you move your feet?" she called. "The right one." "And the left?" "I can feel it." That was not the question. "No." She studied the cliff again. "How long have you been there?" "Since last night." The answer explained the eagle. A small nest rested beneath an overhang near Caleb's head. No chicks were visible, but scraps of cloth lined its edge. The bird had taken the loose end of his neckerchief and carried it toward the spring. It had not intended to summon help. It had simply revealed where help was needed. Nayeli tied her horse to a juniper and removed 2 coils of rawhide rope from the saddle. She tested the anchor post beside the ruined bridge. It shifted beneath her hand. Someone had cut halfway through its base before pushing it into position. This had not been an accident. Nayeli chose a living cedar farther from the rim instead. She wrapped the first rope twice around its trunk, passed the end through a metal ring on her belt and tied a locking hitch. Caleb watched from below. "That knot is difficult to untie. That is why I chose it. What if we need the rope quickly? We need it to remain attached more." She secured a second line around her waist and lowered herself over the edge. Small stones broke loose beneath her moccasins. She kept her body close to the wall, using cracks in the rock rather than trusting the damaged bridge supports. When she reached the ledge, Caleb tried to sit upright. "Do not. I was going to help. You may assist by remaining conscious. That seems manageable. It should not require your full talent." She knelt beside him. The bullet had passed through the flesh along his side without entering the abdomen. The injury was painful, but it had not caused the weakness she saw in his face. His left leg concerned her more. A falling timber from the bridge had struck above the knee, pinning his boot beneath one end. Nayeli cut away the fabric around his wound, cleaned it with water and packed it with folded cloth. Caleb clenched his jaw as she tightened the bandage. You might warn a man. You already knew it would hurt. I was hoping you had discovered a gentler method. I have. It requires the patient not to be shot. She examined the timber across his leg. It was too heavy to lift without leverage. What happened? Caleb looked toward the satchel. I found Silver Ridge workers drilling inside the old water passage. Silas Crowe plans to blast through the limestone shelf at noon. That shelf carries Eagle Spring. He wants the flow diverted toward his mining claims. The Apache settlement, my ranch and 6 farms near Copper Ridge will lose water within days. Nayeli had suspected as much. During the previous month, Silver Ridge had offered to purchase every property downstream. When the owners refused, survey stakes appeared along the canyon boundary. Silas then insisted his company had abandoned the project. What is in the satchel? She asked. Copies of his survey, payment records, and a report blaming the spring's failure on natural erosion. He wrote the explanation before destroying it. He prefers lies prepared in advance. Caleb nodded toward the rim. 2 guards caught me inside the passage. I reached the bridge before they fired. 1 bullet hit me. The damaged planks did the rest. Why did they leave you alive? They believed the fall killed me. I landed here after the timber trapped my leg. And the eagle? Tried to steal my neckerchief. It succeeded. That bird and I have different definitions of rescue. Nayeli slid a short section of rope beneath the timber and created a loop. She needed someone above to pull while she guided Caleb's leg free. Hoofbeats crossed the ridge. For a moment, she believed Silver Ridge had returned. Then Koda Red Knife appeared above the canyon. At 31, Koda was one of the most skilled riders in the Mescalero settlement. He had known Nayeli since childhood. Their families shared winter stores, grazing routes and stories extending farther back than either could remember. Those same families had quietly decided that Nayeli and Koda would eventually marry. Koda had never asked her. He had simply allowed everyone's expectations to stand in place of her answer. He dismounted near the cedar and looked over the rim. His relief at seeing Nayeli lasted until he noticed Caleb beside her. What happened? He was attacked by Silver Ridge guards, Nayeli replied. His leg is trapped. Take the lifting rope. Koda found the correct line. Why was he here? Because Silas is preparing to destroy Eagle Spring. Why were you meeting him alone? This is not the time. It is a simple question. Nayeli's voice hardened. Then it can wait for a simple day. Pull when I tell you. Koda wrapped the rope around his forearms. Nayeli positioned a flat stone beneath the timber and used her knife sheath as a support for a short lever. If Koda raised the outer end, she could lift the section pinning Caleb. Slowly, she called. The rope tightened. The timber rose. Caleb pulled his leg, but his boot caught beneath a jagged section. Stop. Koda held the weight. Nayeli cut through the boot leather. Caleb dragged his foot free. A rifle shot struck the cliff above them. Fragments of stone scattered across the ledge. 3 mounted men appeared on the opposite ridge. Silas Crowe sat between 2 armed guards. He wore a black coat and polished boots, as though he had dressed for a business meeting rather than a murder. I underestimated you, Morgan, he called. Caleb pushed himself against the wall. You have done that before. Silas looked at Nayeli. And Miss Red Feather. You continue to appear wherever you are least welcome. This is protected Apache land. Protection requires a government willing to enforce it. Koda reached for his bow. Silas's guards aimed at him. Nayeli called upward. Stay behind the cedar. Koda ignored her and moved closer to the edge. Silas smiled when he saw him watching Caleb. You arrived just in time to witness your future disappear. Koda's expression changed. Silas continued. The cowboy has been meeting her in secret for weeks. Did she not tell you? We were investigating the spring, Nayeli said. Koda kept his eyes on Caleb. You trusted him before your own people. I trusted the evidence he brought. That was not my question. No, Nayeli answered. It was an accusation. A section of stone collapsed beneath Caleb's injured foot. The ledge would not hold much longer. Nayeli passed the rescue loop around his chest. Koda, pull him up first. Koda stared down at them. You expect me to save him? I expect you to hold the rope. Silas laughed from the opposite ridge. No man pulls another into the arms of the woman he loves. Koda's hands tightened. Nayeli saw the conflict in his face. Koda, listen to me. Caleb's weight settled into the line. Koda began pulling. Nayeli climbed beside Caleb, guiding him away from the roughest stone. They rose several feet. A guard fired again. The bullet struck the cedar but did not weaken the trunk. Caleb reached halfway to the rim. Then the rope went slack. Nayeli looked up. Koda stood above them with his knife in one hand. The severed line fell past Caleb's shoulder. His body dropped. Nayeli threw herself against the wall and caught the safety rope she had tied around him before the ascent. The secondary line snapped tight against her belt. Caleb fell 6 feet before it stopped him. The force pulled Nayeli from her foothold. She struck the rock and slid to one knee. The backup anchor held, but a crack opened across the ledge beneath them. For several seconds, no one spoke. Koda stared at the cut end in his hand. He had expected Nayeli to remain attached to the upper line. He had not understood that Caleb's fall would drag her down with him. Nayeli, you did not protect me, she said. The quietness in her voice struck him harder than anger. You tried to keep me from dying for him. You decided which life I was permitted to save. The ledge shifted again. Caleb struggled to regain his footing. He made a mistake. Nayeli looked at him. That mistake nearly killed you. Yes. You do not have to defend him. I am not. I am trying to prevent the two of you from discussing this while the mountain falls. Despite everything, she almost smiled. Silas raised his rifle. We have wasted enough time. Another shot struck the remaining bridge post. The damaged wood broke free, and part of the structure crashed onto the ledge. The impact opened a narrow gap in the cliff behind Nayeli. Cool air moved through it. She felt moisture against her face. The old water passage lay beyond the wall. Nayeli pulled Caleb toward the opening. Can you crawl? With enthusiasm. No. Without it? I can try. She widened the gap using a loose bridge plank. Caleb pushed the satchel through first, then dragged himself into the darkness. Nayeli followed. Above them, Koda looked at the severed rope. Silas's guards began circling toward his side of the canyon. Koda could retreat east and warn the settlement. No one would blame him for surviving. He saw blood on the rock where Caleb had fallen. Then he remembered Nayeli's face. Not frightened. Betrayed. Koda tied the two cut sections together with a double bend. The knot would never pass smoothly over the cliff, but it could carry his weight. He secured it around his waist and descended. Silas saw him. You are following a woman who will never choose you. Koda continued downward. The guards fired. One bullet cut through the edge of his sleeve. Another struck the rock above his head. He reached the broken opening and crawled inside. Darkness swallowed the gunfire. Nayeli and Caleb waited several yards ahead. Water dripped from the limestone ceiling. Old support beams lined a passage wide enough for a mining cart. Koda stopped in front of Nayeli. I was wrong. You were. I believed cutting the rope would keep you alive. You believed your fear mattered more than my decision. He lowered his eyes. Yes. A deep vibration moved through the passage. Dust fell from the beams. Caleb opened the satchel and removed a folded survey. The main charge is beneath the spring shelf. Another line runs toward the southern wall. Why 2 charges? Koda asked. The first redirects the water, Nayeli said. The second collapses the canyon afterward. Caleb nodded. Silas plans to bury the evidence, including us. Koda looked toward the darkness. What do you need? Nayeli held his gaze. This time, he did not tell her what he intended to do. He waited. Carry Caleb, she said. Follow exactly where I step. Koda crouched and pulled Caleb's arm across his shoulders. Caleb hesitated. I am heavier than I look. You look heavy. That seems unnecessary. It is accurate. Together they moved deeper into the passage. Nayeli read the ground by lantern fragments, damp air and the direction of the water. Fresh boot prints led toward a large chamber. Wooden crates stood beside a drilling platform. 2 fuse lines crossed the floor and joined at an iron support near an empty ore cart. A canvas table held more documents. Among them lay a prepared newspaper account describing 3 deaths in an accidental canyon collapse: Caleb Morgan, Nayeli Red Feather and Koda Red Knife. Silas had planned for Koda's arrival as well. He expected our anger to finish what his bullets began, Nayeli said. Koda looked at Caleb. For the first time, he saw Silas's manipulation clearly. The mine owner had not created Koda's jealousy, but he had recognized it and used it like another weapon. A spark appeared in the western passage. Silas had lit the master fuse. Flame moved toward the junction. How long? Nayeli asked. Caleb examined the cord. 3 minutes. Perhaps less. Koda set him beside the ore cart. We cut both lines. If we cut them while they are burning, powder inside the cords may carry the flame across the gap, Caleb said. Nayeli studied the iron support. We remove the junction. It is bolted to the floor. The cart is chained to it. Caleb understood. If the cart rolls, it may pull the entire brace loose. The track descends toward us, Koda said. It is loaded, Nayeli replied. Empty it. They moved. Koda threw drilling tools and broken stone from the cart. Nayeli cut the leather straps around 2 powder crates while Caleb used a wrench from the platform to release the brake. The burning fuse passed the first timber. 2 minutes remained. 1 crate had become wedged beneath the front rail. Koda pulled it. It did not move. Caleb tried to stand. His injured leg folded. Nayeli caught him. Tell us what to do. Use the drill bar beneath the crate. Koda positioned the iron bar. Nayeli placed a stone under it as a fulcrum. They pushed together. The box rose. Koda dragged it free and rolled it into a shallow drainage trench. The cart shifted forward. Its chain tightened against the fuse support. The iron brace bent but remained attached. More weight, Caleb said. Koda climbed into the cart. Nayeli released the final catch. The wheels began turning. The cart rolled downhill with Koda inside. The chain snapped straight, tearing the brace from the floor. Both fuse lines lifted. One broke. The other stretched without separating. Nayeli ran beside the cart, caught the loose drill bar and struck the weakened metal connector. Once. Twice. The fitting split on the third blow. The burning section fell into a pool of water. Darkness returned. Then a gunshot exploded through the chamber. Silas stood at the western entrance. His first bullet struck the lantern hanging above the powder crates. Burning oil spread across the floor. "You saved the spring," he said. "Now you can die beside it." The fire moved toward spilled powder. Nayeli saw a narrow drill hole in the southern wall. Cool air flowed from it, carrying the smell of wet earth. Beyond that wall lay the old channel used by Eagle Spring before a rockslide sealed it many years earlier. If they opened it, the water pressure beneath the damaged shelf could escape. The new flow might also extinguish the fire. "Caleb, how much powder opens that wall without collapsing it?" He studied the limestone. "I need to know where it is thinnest." Nayeli pressed her ear against the rock. The roar behind it changed as she moved. Near the floor it sounded deep and solid. 4 feet to the left, the echo became hollow. "Here." Caleb opened a cartridge and poured most of its powder away from the flame. He packed a small amount into the drill hole. Koda reached for him. "I will place it. You do not know the charge. You cannot walk." Caleb handed him the prepared cartridge. "Push it to the cloth mark. No farther." Koda obeyed precisely. Silas advanced and fired again. The bullet struck a timber brace. A heavy beam dropped across the passage between him and the others. One end pinned Koda's coat to the ground. Nayeli ran back. "Leave me," Koda said. "You have made enough decisions for me today." She cut through his coat and pulled him free. Caleb shortened a fuse. 20 seconds. "That is not enough," Koda said. "It is what we have." Caleb lit the charge. They moved behind the ore cart as the flame crossed the floor. The blast produced a sharp crack rather than a deep explosion. A section of limestone broke outward. Water burst through the opening. It struck the burning oil, extinguished the flames and rushed down the abandoned southern channel. Pressure beneath the mountain released with a sound like distant thunder. The trembling slowed. The main shelf held. Eagle Spring would continue flowing toward the communities below. Silas climbed over the fallen beam and raised his revolver at Nayeli. Caleb stepped toward her, but his leg failed. Koda reached for his knife. Nayeli stood between all 3 men. Silas pulled the trigger. The hammer struck an empty chamber. He looked at the weapon in disbelief. Nayeli drove the drill bar against his wrist. The revolver fell into the water. Silas turned and ran toward the canyon exit. They followed through the eastern passage. Outside, sunlight covered the ridge. The eagle circled above its nest while Silas tried to reach a waiting horse. Koda overtook him near the ruined bridge and forced him to the ground. His knife stopped beneath Silas's jaw. Silas smiled despite the mud on his face. "You cut the rope because you knew she would choose him." Koda's hand tightened. "You nearly killed her," Silas continued. "Kill me, and perhaps she will remember that you finally did something for her." Nayeli approached with the satchel. She did not order Koda to lower the blade. A command might stop his hand, but it would not change the belief behind it. Koda looked at the cut rope hanging from the cedar. Then he saw the knot he had tied when he chose to follow them. One cut represented fear disguised as protection. The knot represented responsibility after harm. He removed the knife. "This is not about whom she chooses." Koda turned Silas face down and bound his wrists with the repaired rope. "And neither is she." Hoofbeats rose from the eastern trail. Sheriff Daniel Harper arrived with 2 deputies, several Copper Ridge ranchers and 6 Apache riders. They had seen smoke above Eagle's Shadow Canyon and heard the controlled blast. Caleb handed Harper the satchel. Inside were Silver Ridge payment records, the diversion survey, the prepared reports of 3 deaths and letters instructing workers to conceal the drilling from territorial inspectors. 2 mining employees emerged from the passage behind Silas. Both lowered their weapons. He ordered us to weaken the bridge, one said. The other pointed toward Caleb. He told us to leave Morgan on the ledge. Crowe said the canyon would bury everyone at noon. Silas tried to speak. Harper stopped him. You prepared the account of their deaths before the accident occurred. I prepared for a possible outcome. You prepared 3 murders. The sheriff placed iron cuffs around his wrists. Silas Crowe was charged with attempted murder, illegal blasting, fraud and conspiracy to seize protected water rights. Silver Ridge lost its mining permits, and the workers who testified received reduced sentences. Within 2 months, Eagle Shadow Canyon became a protected watershed. No private company could drill, blast, or redirect the spring without the approval of every downstream community. The damaged bridge was replaced. The abandoned mine passage became an emergency water channel. A permanent rescue shelter was built beside the upper trail with ropes, splints, medicine, lanterns and tools for reaching the cliffs. The eagle continued nesting above the canyon. People began calling it the bird that had saved Caleb Morgan. Nayeli corrected them whenever she heard the claim. The eagle found cloth for its nest, she said. I chose to follow it. Caleb's leg healed slowly. He spent several weeks at the Apache settlement because traveling to his ranch would have reopened the wound. Koda brought him food twice and spoke only when necessary. On the 3rd visit, Caleb held up the repaired rescue rope. You tied this knot well. I cut it first. Yes. Koda waited for him to soften the truth. Caleb did not. After a moment, he added, then you came down. That does not erase what I did. No, why did you defend me on the ledge? Because Nayeli needed both of us alive. Koda almost smiled. That sounds like her. It is becoming a useful way to think. The 2 men did not become friends that afternoon. They did stop treating each other as enemies. Several weeks later, Koda found Nayeli beside Eagle Spring. She was placing stones along the restored bank to prevent erosion. I owe you more than an apology, he said. Yes. Her answer surprised him, though it should not have. Koda continued. Our families believed we would marry. I treated their hope as if you had already agreed. I never did. I know. He looked toward the canyon. When I saw you holding Caleb on that ledge, I thought I was losing something that belonged to me. No one was taking me from you. Because you were never mine to lose. Nayeli set down the stone in her hands. Koda faced her. I loved you, but when your choice frightened me, I tried to remove the choice. I called it protection because that sounded better than control. The honesty did not repair the cut rope. It did prove that he finally understood why he had used the knife. I cannot promise our friendship will return to what it was, Nayeli said. It should not. What it was allowed me to believe too much. What can you promise? That I will never confuse devotion with ownership again. Nayeli nodded. It was not forgiveness offered cheaply. It was the beginning of trust being rebuilt honestly. 1 year after the rescue, families gathered for the opening of the Eagle Shadow Shelter. Apache trackers taught ranch children how to identify unstable ground. Copper Ridge volunteers practiced lifting an injured person without worsening a fracture. Koda demonstrated the knot he had used to repair the severed line. He never hid the reason it had needed repair. Caleb installed an additional anchor beside the canyon rim. Nayeli inspected it twice. Do you expect the mountain to move? He asked. No, the tree. No, then why test it again? Because confidence is not the same as proof. That sounds directed at more than the anchor. It usually is. At sunset, the eagle crossed above the spring and disappeared toward the western cliffs. Caleb stood beside Nayeli near the shelter. I have been thinking about the northern trail, he said. That is dangerous. Thinking. You. Doing it alone. He accepted the correction. There should be another shelter before the winter pass. Stone walls, a water barrel and room for stranded families. 6 beds. 12. That will cost more. You own cattle. That does not make me wealthy. No. It makes you useful. Caleb laughed. Then he opened one hand between them. He did not reach for her. He did not offer the rescue as proof that he deserved anything. He had nearly died, carried evidence and returned for Koda inside the collapsing passage, but none of those actions purchased a human future. Nayeli looked toward Koda. He was teaching 2 children how to examine a rope for hidden damage. When he noticed her watching, he gave a respectful nod and returned to the lesson. She looked at Eagle Spring. The water moved through its protected channel toward the settlement, the ranches and the farms below. Finally, she turned back to Caleb. I did not save you so you would owe me your life, she said. I know. You did not help protect the spring so I would owe you mine. I know that too. And I am not choosing you because an eagle carried your cloth to me. That is reassuring. I would rather not lose another neckerchief. Nayeli placed her hand in his. I choose you because you learned that standing beside me is different from standing in my way. Caleb closed his fingers gently around hers. I intend to remember the distinction. I will remind you. I expected that. Together, they walked toward the shelter. Above them, the repaired rescue rope hung beside the entrance. The cut remained visible beneath Koda's knot. No one had hidden it or replaced it with a perfect line. The rope had failed because fear guided the hand holding the knife. It held again because the man responsible returned, admitted what he had done and chose to repair what he could without demanding a reward. People later told the story of an eagle that led an Apache woman to a dying cowboy. They spoke of the jealous warrior who cut the rescue rope and the mine owner who tried to bury 3 communities beneath a canyon. But the truth was not about a miraculous bird, a wounded man or 2 rivals competing for a woman. The eagle revealed a path. Nayeli chose to follow it. Caleb survived because he trusted her knowledge when his own strength was gone. Koda's greatest act was not descending the cliff or facing Silas. It was recognizing that love without respect could become another form of harm. Eagle Spring survived because 3 people stopped fighting for possession and began working toward the same purpose. And the love that grew beside the canyon endured because it was not taken, earned or owed. It was freely chosen.